I pulled into my driveway after my weekly visit to the cemetery, and my heart didn't just drop, it shattered. There was a massive moving truck parked on my curb, and two guys were casually hauling Lily's bed out the front door. The purple butterfly sheets she'd picked out herself were still clinging to the mattress, flapping in the wind like ghost wings. I sat there in my car, gripped by this cold, paralyzing shock, counting exactly 3 heartbeats before the rage kicked in. This wasn't a mistake. This was an invasion. My mother-in-law, Margaret, was standing on the porch like she was the CEO of my life. She was draped in an expensive new suit, her signature pearls catching the afternoon sun as she pointed toward the truck like a general directing a battlefield. She had timed this with surgical precision. She knew Tuesday was my day, the one day I spent hours at Lily's grave trying to find some semblance of peace. She waited until I was gone to dismantle my daughter's sanctuary. As I walked up the path, clutching a bouquet of daisies I'd forgotten to leave at the headstone, Margaret didn't even have the decency to look guilty. She just checked her watch and said, "Oh good. You're home. We've made excellent progress." She started yapping about how Jason's miracle baby needed a room by Christmas, and how it was best to start fresh. I felt like I'd been slapped. Fresh? My daughter had been gone for 4 months, and Margaret was already treating her memory like yesterday's trash. I was about to go nuclear, but then Margaret said something so out of pocket about Lily's legacy that I realized this wasn't just about a room, it was a total erasure. "Jason's baby is due December 15th, Margaret announced, supervising the movers as they struggled with Lily's bookshelf. She had this smug, I know best energy that made my skin crawl. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Finally, a grandchild to carry on the family name. We're turning this into a proper nursery. None of that purple princess nonsense." Those words, "purple princess nonsense," hit me like a physical blow to the chest. Lily had picked out every single inch of that room during her last good month, back when the cancer had retreated just enough to let her dream about a future she would never actually see. To Margaret, those dreams were just clutter. She told me we needed to focus on the future and stop clinging to the past. I asked where my husband Thomas was, and she just waved me off like I was a bothering fly. "Thomas is at work. Obviously someone has to pay for all this," she said, gesturing to the expensive movers. She claimed she was handling everything, so I wouldn't be bothered with details during my grief. She went behind my back because she knew I'd never allow this. Inside, the house was a disaster zone. Boxes labeled "donate" and "trash" were lined up against the wall. My daughter's artwork, the drawings she'd made while sitting in a chemo chair, were stacked carelessly by the door like they meant nothing. Margaret thought she was the one holding all the cards, but she was about to find out that she didn't even own the table we were playing on. I watched a mover reach for Lily's drawings, and I snapped, "Careful with those." Margaret followed me inside, sighing like I was being a dramatic child. "It's just childish scribbles, Veronica," she said. Then she hit me with the ultimate insult. "A man needs living children, Veronica, not shrines to the dead." She actually called my home a mausoleum and told me I couldn't expect Thomas to stay here forever. She was so confident, so sure of her position, because she thought the Harrington name gave her power. She started talking about how the family home should stay in the family. That's when I pulled out my phone and pulled up the property records. "You're right, Margaret. It should stay in the family, my family." I showed her the digital deed. My grandmother left this house to me. Thomas moved in after we married, but the deed never changed. I watched the color drain from her face as she realized that she was currently trespassing in a house she had zero legal claim to. I told her that while I appreciated her initiative for Jason's baby, he'd need to find his own nursery space, because this room wasn't going anywhere. Margaret's obsession with bloodlines was about to backfire in the most embarrassing way possible. Once I brought up Jason's medical history, Margaret tried to pivot, acting like biology was the only thing that mattered. Jason's baby will carry on the family blood. That's important, she said, defensively. She was so hyped about this miracle baby that she didn't even stop to think about the math. I looked at her and asked, "Did Jason mention his medical history when he shared this wonderful news?" She looked confused, claiming Jason was perfectly healthy. Unlike Lily, I didn't let that jab slide. I reminded her about the permanent procedure Jason got 3 years ago when he and his first wife decided they were child-free for life. Thomas was the one who went with him for the recovery weekend. The vasectomy, Margaret. Remember? Her face shifted from smug to sheer confusion. I pointed out the interesting timing. Jason divorces his wife, starts dating Jennifer, and suddenly, despite a vasectomy, there's a miracle baby. I wasn't implying anything. I was stating facts. Margaret's perfectly composed face finally started to crack. Just as she was about to explode, my phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. He had no idea what was happening. Margaret tried to call me dramatic, but I was just getting started. I asked her if she noticed the security cameras we'd installed when Lily got sick. Lily was terrified of someone breaking in when she was too weak to move, so we had the whole place wired. Everything's recorded, Margaret. Everything's backed up to the cloud. I showed her my phone, the live feed of her directing the movers, her calling Lily's things nonsense, and her admitting she planned this for when I was at the cemetery. I told the movers to put everything back exactly as it was, using photos of the room for reference. Margaret tried to stand her ground, saying she wasn't leaving until Thomas got home. "Thomas is about to get a very interesting phone call," I said, already dialing. I sent him the link to the security footage before he even picked up. When he answered, he sounded tired, asking how the cemetery visit was. I told him his mother was here with some interesting news about a nursery for Jason. Thomas went silent for a second, and then the dad rage kicked in. He wasn't just coming home, he was coming for blood. I put the phone on speaker so Margaret could hear every word. Thomas's voice was cold, a side of him I'd rarely heard. "Mom, if you're listening, don't move. Don't touch anything else. Don't speak." Margaret tried to play the victim, whimpering that she was just trying to help, but Thomas roared over her. "My daughter has been dead for 4 months, and you're gutting her room." He told her that was the room where he read bedtime stories, where Lily told him she loved him for the last time. He told her he'd be there in 20 minutes, and hung up. Margaret stood there frozen, her perfect composure finally shattered into a million pieces. I sat on the couch, exhausted, and told her the worst part. Lily actually loved her. Even when Margaret made it clear Lily wasn't real family. Lily had spent hours making her a birthday card, despite being weak from chemo. I told her it was probably in one of the boxes she'd labeled trash. Margaret actually started digging through the trash boxes. What she found inside changed the energy in the room instantly. Margaret found it in the third box, a purple construction paper card covered in shaky handwriting and way too much glitter. She read it out loud. "To Grandma Margaret, thank you for being in our family. Love, Lily." Margaret's hands were shaking so hard the card was rattling. I told her, she made you part of our family, even though you never made her part of yours. Just then, Thomas's car screeched into the driveway. He burst through the door in his work clothes, his face a mask of pure fury. He didn't even look at the furniture. He went straight for his mother. "Get out," he said, his voice deadly quiet. He told her he was done with the subtle jabs, done with the biological grandchildren obsession. "She was my daughter," he said, touching the doorframe of Lily's room. "She called me Daddy. I held her hand through every treatment. Don't you dare tell me she wasn't my real daughter." He told her Jason's baby could have a room in Jason's house, with Jason's money, but they were finished with her. Thomas kicked her out and told her if she ever touched anything in our house again, she'd never see us again. But the drama with Jason was just beginning. Margaret left, still clutching Lily's card, until I made her hand it over. Thomas took it like it was made of spun glass. We spent the rest of the night putting Lily's room back together. Every stuffed animal, every drawing, every book. We sat on her bed as the sun set, the room smelling like her strawberry shampoo. Thomas confirmed what I suspected. There was no vasectomy reversal. Jason was actually terrified of being a father, and always had been. If Jennifer was pregnant, it definitely wasn't a Harrington miracle. My phone buzzed again. A text from Jennifer, Jason's girlfriend. It said, "Could we talk? I think there's something you should know about the baby." Thomas sighed and said we'd deal with that tomorrow. Tonight, we just held each other in our daughter's room. The room would stay exactly as it was. Not as a shrine, but as a promise. As for Margaret, if she ever truly understood the love she'd thrown away, it would be a bigger miracle than any fresh start she could imagine. We thought the nightmare ended when Margaret walked out that door, but my phone is still glowing with that message from Jennifer. "See, there's one thing Margaret forgot in her rush to replace Lily. In this house, the walls don't just have ears, they have digital receipts." Thomas and I are sitting in the glow of the butterfly lamp, but the miracle baby's secret Jennifer is about to drop might not just ruin Jason, it might expose why Margaret was really in such a hurry to erase my daughter's memory. Is Jennifer an ally, or is she the next player in Margaret's twisted game? And what exactly did those security cameras catch when Margaret thought nobody was looking? I'm opening Jennifer's next text right now. If you want to see the footage that changed everything, subscribe to Revenge Diaries and drop next episode in the comments. Trust me, the real revenge hasn't even started yet.